everyone, welcome back to my Earth Friendly Kitchen. This is Maria, and today we are going to be doing a butternut squash ravioli with a sage and brown butter sauce. Oh my gosh, it is so creamy, so delicious. You are going to just make this very upscale meal with very limited pantry ingredients that you are going to blow anyone away who you make this meal for. So we are going to start out by making the pasta dough because that has to rest for a little while. And if you've seen my zucchini ravioli episode, then you can skip this part if you want to, or just come along for the ride. But it's going to be my very basic pasta dough recipe, which is essentially we start with 2 cups of flour and a little bit extra there. And then we're going to make this little well in the center. And then we're going to add 3 eggs, room temperature eggs. So very important, they're room temperature because it's just going to help the dough come together a little bit easier. To have the proteins mix in. Oh, we don't want that guy in there. To have the proteins mix with the flour. Okay, so we're going to start here. Now let's try and see if we can do this without making a giant mess like we did the last time. So you're just going to try to start whisking it in, and as you whisk into the well, you're going to be breaking the yolks, and you're going to start pulling some of that flour from the walls. So you see how it starts to become incorporated there, and then once this becomes a little bit together like that, we're going to stop and just add our olive oil, which is going to be about a tablespoon here. Okay, and then we're going to do a teaspoon of salt. Now I'm doing coarse kosher salt, as I usually do. I just think it melts really well into the dough. But you know, if you have table salt at home, that's okay too. And then we're just going to keep going with that process. Just keep whisking and keep pulling away from the walls. As it starts to come together, you're going to pull more flour in to the batter. And then as we get into it, it's going to start really forming itself. Now, I have this little tool here too to help fold in some of the flour. Keeps it, whoop, that just broke my wall, see? Guys, I tried not to be as messy as I was the last time, but you know, it's all coming together anyway. So obviously you want to make sure you're working on a very clean surface, so that when this happens, your whole surface is not going to be compromised. All right, I'm just going to add this together, and then I'm just going to start folding in. And now it's getting too clumpy for my fork, so I'm just going to fold in to the egg like that, and then we're about to get our hands dirty. Now this is my most simple recipe for dough, pasta dough I should say. You know, some days you need more flour, some days you need to add a little bit of water. Maybe it was too much flour initially, right? It's all going to depend on where you are. I always say this, like when it comes to flour or baking or dough of any kind, bread dough, baking dough, cake batters, cookie doughs, you know, things like that. It's all going to really depend on your location, your temperature outside, the humidity levels. Today up here in the Northeast, we are in full swing fall/winter's coming. So it's nice and cool out for us and very dry. We actually haven't had a lot of rain lately, which has been a bit of an issue, but you know, it'll come. It always does. So you're going to work this dough a little bit more, and you're going to make sure that it comes together into a ball. And you really just want to get all your little bits here, because that's where the good stuff is, in the little bits. Just pull them all up. All right. And then once this comes together, we are going to put it in a bowl and cover it while we get everything else together. Now, the reason why this dish, for some reason, gets to be very expensive if you eat it out in a restaurant is probably because of this effort, you know, because the ingredients are pretty minimal. See that? You want it to be nice and bouncy. See how I push on it and it bounces right back? That's exactly what you want to see. And we're going to put this right here. Actually, I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil in the bowl itself. Okay, and then we're going to cover it with a towel. Guys, it's getting close to Christmas. Very exciting. I know, like, I'm not trying to skip Thanksgiving, but this is actually a really great dish to make around Thanksgiving time because, you know, like, some people don't want to make turkey necessarily, right? Like, you don't necessarily want to make the big meal, or you don't have a huge family to make a, you know, 10, 20-pound turkey. So maybe you choose to do, you know, Cornish hens instead. And this would be like a great, like, first meal dish, you know, for doing that, like before you serve your Cornish hens. So it's like, you'll see when it comes out, it'll be really great, like alternative if you want. All right, so now we're going to do the filling. We are going to take a can of butternut squash puree. Now you can make this yourself, right? You can buy butternut squash, roast it, scoop it out, mash it, you know, do all of that. But first of all, that's a lot of extra steps, which I have done in the past, trust me. So I know the work that it takes. But also, you know, butternut squash, even though it's seasonal, can be a little bit expensive, right? When it comes to the pricing. And so it's like to get this amount of puree, you would probably need to have 2 fairly large butternut squash, because remember, they're not, when you see a butternut squash it's like this big, it's not the whole thing. There's a hole inside, right, that you cut out all of the seeds. So you would need probably to get 2 of them, and they can be anywhere from $2 to, you know, $3 each at least. And this is just going to be, you know, $1.99 or, you know, whatever is, you know, you have there. And usually they'll run sales on that kind of stuff because it's seasonal and they know people want to make things. Okay, guys, this is why I open stuff before we film, so that you don't have to see me struggle with plastics. All right, this is some ricotta cheese. Now we are going to put in about 1/2 cup to this can of ricotta. So a can of butternut squash. So about 1/2 cup here. Now this is a 15-ounce bowl here. So I'm just doing that, and I'll save the rest to make something else delicious later. And then I'm going to add a little bit of seasoning. So we're going to do a teaspoon of garlic powder. Season up our filling on the inside. So a teaspoon of garlic powder. We're going to do 1/2 teaspoon of thyme. Thyme and sage go really well together. And 1/2 teaspoon of oregano. And then a little bit more salt on the inside. Now you don't want to make it too salty, right? The filling. Okay. All right. Because your pasta dough has salt, and we're also going to have salt in the pasta water when we cook it, so that it's going to permeate through. So, and then you just mix that all in together. Blend it really nice till it's super creamy, and blend it in. Now you want it to be a little bit on the thicker side, right? Because it's going to be a filling, and you don't want it to just be running like out of your pasta. So this is actually a little bit too thin. So I'm going to add a little bit more of the ricotta cheese. So you just eyeball it, you know, because the butternut squash is thin, you know. So you just eyeball it until it's kind of at the consistency that you want with that. Okay. All right. So that looks pretty good there. Nice. All right. So that's our filling. Let me just taste it. Get back my spoon here. And oh my gosh, you guys. You can just eat this, like, literally I can just eat it with a spoon. Just like that. So good. Okay. And then I am going to prep For the next step after we've made, just so that I have it done, once we're going to bring this to the stove when we're ready to put it all together. So I'm just going to chop up some garlic, cloves, and some sage, some actual fresh sage. Now, normally I tell you guys it's okay to use dried sage, and honestly, it may be okay, but to me, I think that for this recipe, you really need to try to find some fresh sage, because the whole aesthetic about it, as well as, oh, I thought I lost that guy, as well as the flavor that you get just from that fresh sage is really, really important for the butter sauce. So I don't know, I really 10 out of 10 recommend you getting the fresh sage for this one, and you know, not the dried for this, because also you're going to be kind of browning the butter, like I said, and you don't want it to burn the dried spice, which it can much more easily than fresh sage. So, you know, you should be able to find it pretty readily at your local grocery store with all the other fresh herbs. And you don't need a lot. I just got this little tiny guy here. You know, it was like $1.50, something like that. So it's not expensive. You know, you don't have to get a whole big thing of it to do this dish, because you're only going to need about a tablespoon or so of finely julienned packed sage. And I'll show you what that looks like when we chop it up. So I'm just making this kind of like a nice fine dice of garlic. Put it together, run it through one more time, just because again it's going to be part of a sauce, so you want it to kind of just melt in when it cooks. Okay, so there's that. And then I'll show you what I mean about julienne and packed. All right, so you're going to want to pull the leaves. Now, sometimes certain herbs you can use the stems. Sage is not one of them. You don't want to use the stems for sage, mostly just because they're bitter. Now, if you were making like a soup or a stock or something, you could wrap them if you wanted to and just throw the whole bunch in, but you're not going to chop up it because it's just kind of bitter and a little bit too woody for this recipe. So what I mean by packed is you're just going to roll them up really tightly. Oh, we got a little bit of a long stem there. Roll them up really tightly. Okay, here, pack it in, and then just run your knife through in julienne. Okay, so you're going to make really nice, pretty strips. Oh, this guy escaped. All right, so half of it will look a little chopped, but there'll be kind of longer pieces of herbs. Okay, so this is it. This is all we're going to need for our, oh my gosh, like it just hit me, the whiff, and it just caught me off guard, guys. It's so good. I can't wait to put this all together. All right. So now that we have our filling and we have our dough, it's been resting for a little bit, we are going to roll it out here. Now, we're going to use my stand mixer. I have an attachment for pasta dough. If you don't have this, you know, stand mixer, that's okay. It's, you know, just going to take a little bit longer to roll it out by hand. And, you know, that's it. If you're willing to do it, then that's it. So I'm going to take my dough and I'm going to make it into just kind of manageable pieces here. I'm going to cut it into thirds actually. And then we're going to work each piece kind of on its own. So let's keep these guys together and cover them. And so we're just going to flatten this out a little bit. And we're going to start the setting. If you have one of the pasta rollers or if you've never used one before, you're going to want to start on the lowest setting, which is 1. And you want to go pretty slow with this. You don't want to be running your dough through super fast because it will break. And that's the one thing you really don't want to happen, is for your dough to break. So you're going to run it through a couple of times And we are just going to run this through until it starts getting really nice and translucent. So we did it on the lowest setting for a little bit, and then we're going to move it up, maybe 2 notches. You don't have to go up like 1 by 1. I mean, some people do like to do that. I think by going up by 2 in the beginning especially is okay. But when you get towards the end, 1 by 1, because you want to make sure you're not going to go too far and rip the dough. Okay. And as it pulls, as it thins it out, it's also going to stretch it out. It's going to make it longer. And that's what you want to see happening. So you want to make sure you're guiding it through. I'm not pulling. I'm letting the machine push it through. Now, if you're hand rolling this, this is, what you're going to start looking for. You want to make nice long strips because we're going to be playing, we're going to be, stuffing them on top of each other. And you want it to be pretty thin because otherwise you just get this big doughy piece of pasta with stuffing inside. The ratio might be a little bit off. You want to make it fairly translucent like it is now. So I'm going to end this here on a level 6. Depending on how big of a piece you put through, you may need more, you may need less. But if you can see my hand through the dough. You can see it really nicely. So, alright. So we're going to put that piece there. And then we're going to do our next piece here. Just kind of flatten it a little bit. We're going to go back to our 1. Alright, and you want to kind of start with it, just kind of pull it a little bit so that it's long. So you're kind of like guiding the shape, It'll guide itself too, but this helps, even more so. Oh, as I say that, and this guy gets stuck. Well, it'll pull eventually. There we go. Okay. I don't know why that happened. Maybe I didn't pull it far enough. That's usually, if your piece is too thick, it gets stuck like that, But listen, dough is pliable, right? You just fold it up and put it back in. That's the great thing about it. Just like batters or flours or bread doughs or cookie doughs, right? If you have too much flour or you have too much water, you can always adjust it a little bit. I love working with dough. My daughter loves working with Play-Doh, and I feel like she might want to like make pasta one day, because she just likes doing it. So she's helped me before with this, but you have to be very careful with littles and things like this because you don't want them sticking their fingers in. So I just let her pull it out usually. I don't let her put it on top, just in case. Maybe I'm a little extra cautious, but I don't know. To me, I think you can't be too cautious. So, alright. So now we're going to work this up a little bit. And see? It comes out. It all comes out in the end. Now listen, if your pieces of ball, like if your ball pieces when you cut it isn't the same size and this is like longer than the other, it doesn't matter. You're going to basically do this until your dough is completely gone. So you're going to be rolling up the extra that you're cutting off. You're going to be, reworking it back into other pieces. So don't worry if they're a little bit misshapen. They don't have to be perfect. This is home cooking, right? So, it can be a little bit rustic, if I don't say so myself. That's the thing that makes it better than a restaurant, because those small imperfections that you might have is because somebody made that for you very intentionally. See, like this piece is going to be a lot longer than our other piece, but that's okay because it's going to keep going anyways. Alright, so you see once again, translucent. You can see my hands through it. So this is where we're going to end. I'm just going to put it right there on the flour. Okay, and then we're going to flour it a little bit more on top. Okay, just to keep it from sticking on both sides. Alright, and then I'm just going to take my tablespoon that I used earlier, because why dirty another dish? and just put it right there, nice and in the middle. All right, and you're going to do about maybe 3/4 of a tablespoon for each filling. Okay, now I don't want it to go too far because, like I said, this is not as long as this one. But what I do need, oh, I forgot. Let me grab some water. What we are going to do is put a little bit of water kind of in between. This helps the dough stick to itself and kind of around, right? And then you're just going to do that kind of all over. All right, and then we're just going to lay this right on top. And you're going to press it down, and you want to try to get as much air out from around the filling as possible, because this is going to keep your raviolis from bursting open when they are cooking. If a little bit of air is in there, it's okay. You know, don't go too crazy, but this is going to keep them from really losing their volume when they are cooking. Okay? So then you know you have a really good seal. Now, I usually will do I'll just do it very easily, and I'll make like a circle ravioli because I just have like this cookie cutter that I use. And just like makes perfect little circles. But today I'm going to use this fun tool that I got. It actually came in my daughter's pretend cutting set that we bought her. Like, she has like her own little pretend knife set. And I just think it's just so cute because it gets these little like curls at the end. Because I know that you can buy like those rollers that do this, right? That give you like fun edges when you're, making raviolis, or when you're making cool designs in like fondant or something like that, right? But isn't this cool? Like, this is the kind of stuff that makes people feel like they're eating at like an upscale restaurant when they come to your home, And this came in a set, and it's like, you can buy them separate. They're super cheap to get something like this. But look at these raviolis, guys. How beautiful. Like, really. So we're just going to put them on our pan so that they can sit for a little bit. Parchment paper. I love this brand of parchment. I get it at my local store. I'm not sure if you can find it, but it's called If You Care. They're compostable, recyclable sheets. They come, rip one off, and you're good to go. I love it. For single-use products, it's one of my faves. All right, there you go. So just like that. So I'm going to basically do this on repeat until all my dough is gone. So you see this? You just ball it back up. We're going to run it through again. And we're just going to do this until all the dough is gone. Hopefully it's a good ratio of dough to filling that, I'm going to have. And then we will, we'll probably speed that up, because I don't think you need to necessarily watch me do dough for, 10 minutes, because this is the legwork this is the time of the legwork for the recipe. Once this is done, I do have some, pasta water boiling right now, because once this is done, as soon as we're done with this, what happens over on the stove literally takes less than 5 minutes. So that's the good part. So a little bit of work up front to do less work later for a huge reward. All right, so here we go. Let's make some more raviolis. At the end of our dough here now. I'm just trying to see if I can salvage just a couple more, squeeze them in. We've got 2 dozen raviolis now from this dough recipe. There's a little bit of filling left, so I might use that. You could freeze that actually, and I'll use it in another, one day for another batch of these because now the prep is done. So you get 2 whole fillings out of one batch. I'm just trying to squeeze out these last couple, the little bit of dough left. I try not to waste as much as possible. So I just kind of folded this dough onto itself. And then we're going to bring these guys. Now I layered them on another layer of parchment here so that they didn't stick to each other. Because even though they're going to dry a little bit while you're, making your other doughs, some of the ravioli will dry. You don't want them, they could also dry and get stuck. So you don't want that because then you're pulling them apart and then they just peel off. So this is all the dough I have left. And we're not going to be able to make any more raviolis from that. So that's over. So like I said, we have 2 dozen plus 3 raviolis in here. I'm going to bring my olive oil and the sage and garlic that we chopped earlier over to the stove along with our raviolis, and you're going to see how fast, once this is done, it comes together. Let's go. Okay, so like I said, I've got a pot of boiling water here. I'm just going to rinse my hands off a little bit, get some of that flour off that I've been working with. Okay, and we're going to start by making our brown butter. Now, brown butter is a little bit tricky, but we're going to get through it. I'm going to give you an easy way to hopefully not, burn your brown butter, because that's the concern with most people. Now, you're going to want to take about 6 tablespoons of butter, and if you get the sticks, it's very easy, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because there's 8 tablespoons in a pack. So you can just follow your lines here and take off 2 tablespoons, okay? And I know it seems like a lot, but this is going to come down. Oh, okay, this has obviously been sitting and softened up really nicely. Okay, so we're going to turn this on a medium heat, and we're going to try to keep it from burning by adding just a little bit of olive oil to it. The oil tends to be a little bit more stable when it comes to burn point, and so that's why it's easy. Just kind of mix the butter in with the oil. It's easy for the butter to not burn a little bit better when you add a little bit of the olive oil to it. Okay, so we're going to just let this melt down and bring it up. Now, the other ingredients we have for this sauce is just the garlic we chopped, the sage we chopped, so about a 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, and we're going to add about 2 tablespoons of heavy cream once, everything is all together. So this is why you want to just mix it around. Now, brown butter, what brown butter does, or the difference between brown butter and just like a regular butter sauce, is when you cook it, you tend to separate some of the milk particles from the oils, and it turns it into this really beautiful kind of nutty flavor that's just increases the intensity of the butter, and it just really works so well with this type of dish, with the woodiness and the flavors of the sage and the garlic. So you're just going to have that come down really nicely, and you want it to be, like I said, about a medium heat, because if it's too high, you'll bring it up too fast and it definitely will burn. But you're going to want to watch for the, for that to happen. So, but you're going to start noticing it is starting to bubble up on the sides here. And as it does that, this will start to become less cloudy and more clear looking as the particles start to separate and the butter starts to brown. Okay? And it's very fast when that happens. And so because it's very fast, these are also very fast. Because you made fresh pasta and it's not dried, this is only going to take maybe 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes for these guys to cook. So we're just going to drop our pastas in, our raviolis. Everybody in the pool. All right. Because dried pasta takes a little bit longer to cook, but you can hear that butter start to kind of pop a little bit, and that's all of those particles starting to kind of come together. Now you don't want it to be too high, so if you notice you're popping too much, turn it down a little bit, because again, that's how you know it starts to burn. Okay, almost done with these guys. Ooh, see? Too high. Turn it down. But you'll notice that the butter, you can see, has started to clear up already. And you really just don't want to mess with it too much. But you see how they're starting to separate, and it's getting a little bit more clear looking than cloudy. So this is exactly what you want to start seeing. And at this point, you're going to add your garlic, because it's going to roast along with the butter, brown along with it, I should say. And you don't want to put the sage in too early, because again, the sage, because it's an herb, and as we know, herbs are sensitive, while we want to add heat to them to pull out their natural flavors, you don't want to, burn them either. Okay. All right. So you see how these guys are already starting to float to the top? They do not take long at all to cook. Okay. All right. So now you can see this is almost translucent, this butter, instead of that opaqueness that it had when you first started. And this is where that toastiness really starts to set in. Okay. I turned it up just a little bit because I want to make sure that it is coming up to temp. Okay. So then we're going to separate the milk fats. Now this is a technique, like I said, a lot of people shy away from, because it does, you do have to watch it. It's something that you can't just walk away from and let it go, because it will burn. But it is, once it's done, you will see how, like, the reason why we do this. These guys look like they are all done. Look how they're floating to the top here. You see this? This is exactly what you want to see. Okay? So we're actually going to turn these guys off, because we're going to throw them right into this pan. Alright, and this is the point. Do you see this is just about as translucent as it's going to get, this butter sauce? And we're going to add the sage to it now and crisp these guys up really nicely. Okay. And you don't want them to shrivel up so much to the point where they disappear, but they are going to wilt, right, the sage. And you're really just trying to kind of like almost fry them in this oil, because they're going to get this really beautiful, it's going to release all that aroma. And now we're going to add our cheese. About a 1/4 cup of Parmesan, like I said. And get that in there. Okay, mix it up. And then we're going to add about 2 tablespoons of heavy cream. Give it a shake. Okay, we'll say 1, 2. Okay. You can measure it out. Sometimes I just measure with the heart, guys, Okay. All right, pull that together. And then you are just going to add your raviolis straight into the pan. This pan might not hold them all, but that's okay. We'll put as many as we can in here, and we could always make more brown butter sauce later. And if a little bit of the pasta water gets in there, that's okay. You know, it just adds to the sauce for this dish. Okay. Look at that. Oh my gosh, so nice. See the herbs just really so creamy. This is exactly what you want to see. We're just going to plate this up. Just like that. I have to figure out what to get for my utensils, guys. If you saw my short the other day, I got rid of a lot of my black utensils because they were black plastics and they are no good. All right, turn this guy off and look at that. Oh my goodness. You can just sprinkle a little bit more Parmesan on top. And then we are going to take a bite of this so you can see how incredible this actually is. See that nice, that filling that just comes out. So creamy, really nice color. It's not like overpowering. People go like, whoa, orange in my pasta, you know? Oh my gosh. This isn't fall on a plate. I don't know what is. Butternut squash, the sage, the brown butter. It's just so well put together. And this, like I said, obviously may not be as rustic looking as this, but in a fine dine restaurant, you're paying lots of money for this type of serving here. And here you made 5 servings, if you, oh no, I'm sorry, 4 servings plus 3 with your raviolis for probably under 10 bucks. I mean, you can't beat it. You just can't beat it, guys. So if you want more recipes like this, I hope you like and subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.